it's kind of those behind closed doors moments that we don't always get to see. And that's what's so important is by raising awareness and talking about it is we start to realize that maybe this mom looks perfect and looks like they have it all together, but they really are experiencing the same things that I am.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. It's Rick Nuske, and on today's call, I'm with the wonderful Cassie Pigg. How are you, Cassie?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well. I have 2 feet and a heartbeat, I like to say. Now, I know that you're an advocate of maternal mental health for women. Could you tell us, before we do that, a little bit about things like where you're located and why this has become such an important topic for you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm located in the United States. I'm a Midwestern girl, so I'm in Illinois. And this all started for me after I had my daughter. So I was one of these like typical moms that, gonna be a new mom. I read all the baby books. I did all the things, and nothing really prepared me for what was going to happen after birth. You always hear about like the what to expect when you're expecting, but once you get home and you get in that situation, sometimes it can be totally different than what you ever expect it to be. So that's kind of how all this happened. I actually was unfortunate in that I suffered from severe postpartum anxiety after I had my daughter. And so after, going through that and kind of getting myself well, I started to talk about it. And what I realized by, talking about it just with, friends, acquaintances, is that a lot of women experience this and never talk about it. It's something that a lot of times happens behind closed doors. And so I just decided that, that needs to change.
Yeah.
I think women need to feel more comfortable talking about their emotions. They need to know that it doesn't, just because they feel a certain way, it doesn't make them a bad mom. And I just think that's so important. And that's kind of where, my mission stemmed from, I guess.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so very much. I know that it's, a very confronting moment when you have a newborn in your arms and you have a new baby seat in your vehicle, and you place that wonderful new life into the back of your vehicle, because at that very moment, it dawns on a lot of us that, hey, this is very real. Now, I wonder, with your experience, I was wondering about, the leading up to, I guess, before the event and during the birthing, and then once you leave the hospital, are there resources available that you deal with and that you manage women through in this respect?
Yeah. So it's actually really common for women to start developing symptoms of postpartum depression, anxiety, even during pregnancy.
Hmm.
I think the statistic is 1 in 7 women actually start to experience some of the, postpartum depression, anxiety symptoms while they're still pregnant. And so I think, where the disconnect really lies is, first of all, there's not a lot of education around it. Whenever you're pregnant or expecting, there's a lot of education about the health side and
Yeah.
the physical side, but not so much around the mental health side. So Postpartum Support International is an amazing foundation that offers a ton of resources, a ton of support. They have like numbers you can call. They have a website that has all kinds of different resources and things. So that's generally where I point women to whenever they feel like they're starting to experience symptoms or
Yeah.
anything like that. But I think a lot of it, during pregnancy and that initial period is just education. Like you have to know, because, for me personally, I didn't even really know what postpartum depression was. So whenever I started experiencing it,
Hmm.
it just kind of hit me in the face.
Yeah, very confronting. I wonder if another big part of this is obviously bringing this out of the shadows and actually having conversations, communicating with each other. Do you find that it's difficult for people who are suffering this to open up and start talking?
It's very difficult, and I think that there's a lot of factors that play into that, actually. And I think part of it is society's expectation on mothers, because and I think especially with social media and things like that, like it's starting to get better. There are more and more women like myself that are starting to like speak out and advocate, but everybody just kind of looks at you, like you see your friend who just had a baby 6 months ago, and she's already back in her pre-baby clothes,
Yeah.
and they're going out and they're doing things. So like whenever you get to that point and you don't feel like going out and doing anything, you don't feel like doing anything, period, it can be kind of overwhelming to look and see, all these pictures of perfection, which that's what we all like to portray on,
Hmm.
social media. But it's not like that ever behind closed doors. And I think that's part of it is, just setting that expectation that, everybody puts their best foot forward, like no matter what it is, whether it's, on social media or like in person, if you're, having a gathering with friends that have kids. Everybody's generally like on their best behavior whenever you're in a public setting. It's kind of those behind closed doors moments that we
Yep.
don't always get to see. And that's what's so important, is by raising awareness and talking about it, is we start to realize that, okay, maybe this mom looks perfect and looks like they have it all together, but they really are experiencing the same things that I am.
Because they're going through this moment in time where they feel like they have to meet this social expectation, don't they?
Hmm.
Which can
Yeah.
be
Yeah. And
quite
that's a big,
dangerous.
yeah, it is. And that's part of the problem is, I think, and it leads to moms, then we like, especially like put this expectation on ourselves then for, whatever it is, whether it's being, back in your pre-baby clothes, or, you're supposed to feel or act or, be a certain way.
Hmm.
And the reality of it is that there's no definition of like a perfect mom. There's no real like Stepford mom out there that's got it all together and has it all figured out. Like we're all just flying by night
Oh
and
yeah.
figuring it out as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you in your personal journey with this, Cassie, do you recall a moment in time where you felt better? Is there a moment that you can actually notice that?
I think there were a lot of moments. So I was on the fortunate side of things, being that I had an OBGYN who was very aggressive in getting me treatment right
Yeah,
right
yeah.
away. So thankfully I was able to get on the medication that I needed. I started seeing a therapist. I started seeing a psychiatrist. All of that stuff went right for me. So I think honestly, it was like those first, few months are definitely a blur.
Yeah.
But it's like you remember the little things. Like I remember like my daughter, like her first little giggle, and like that was one of the moments where I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. Like maybe, maybe I was meant to be her mom, and I'm doing a good job, because obviously like she's doing okay. She's thriving.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of that has to do with perspective too. If you can keep yourself in a good place where you have that perspective that, it's, yeah, your baby is doing okay and
Yeah.
you're doing the best you can. And at the end of the day, that's all you can do.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm just reflecting on my wife's experience, how having a child wrecked her body, as she put it. It changed her permanently physically, and that affected her mental well being. Now,
Mhm.
is this the major component to this? Is there obviously seems to be a connection between the mental health, then also the physical health. We need to take care of the mental health first, obviously.
Hmm.
So yeah,
So, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, what's interesting about, conditions like postpartum depression, anxiety is it is a combination of factors, because if you think about like what a woman's body has just been through, I
Hmm.
mean, you've just grown a human being, and then you birth that human being. So you have this drastic physical change that, it takes 9 months, and then all of a sudden it's boom, everything shifts back to kind of normal, but it's still not normal.
Yeah.
And then also you have all these like physiological factors too, where your hormones, everything is kind of trying to get back to that pre-baby period, but it can't happen all at once. So you get these surges and rushes of hormones that play a factor in it too. So it's twofold. It's going on, like it hits you from so many different directions. And then also there's an environmental component to it as well,
Yeah.
because you've just went from your life being a certain way to it being 180 degrees different than
Upside
what it
down.
was before.
I wonder, what does the life partner's role play in all of this? What can they do?
Well, it's one of those things that it's so hard, like it's so hard to quantify that. Like, just for partners to be supportive is the biggest thing, because my husband had no idea what to do for me whenever I was going through all of this.
Hmm.
And but he was there. And I mean, that was the biggest thing that he could do for me at the time, was to just be there and still love me, even though I had no idea what was going on with my body or my mind or anything. So, I think that's the biggest role they can play, is just be that support system. And then also, I think it's crucial for, partners to be educated in the signs and symptoms as well, because whenever you're experiencing that,
Hmm.
you don't always see it. So it can be helpful to have that outside perspective. I know whenever I was undergoing my initial diagnosis and everything, like my husband actually talked to my OBGYN privately, because, she wanted to get my perspective, obviously, for how I was feeling and what was going on. But then she also wanted to get my husband's perspective of what he was actually seeing.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for, getting the right course of treatment as well.
This is wonderful insights. This is real life stuff. There's power in just being quiet and listening to somebody who's experiencing this. I can only imagine some of the times that new mums go through. It must be absolutely traumatic, to say the least. Now, you've gone ahead since that time and you've created this wonderful organization, which you have amazing links out to other resources, but you wrote a book. Let's talk about that.
Yes. So my book is called Mommy's Got a Tramp Stamp.
I love the
And
title. It's a great title.
yeah, and everybody always asks me, where it came from. And I always just say, well, I'm a mom and I have a tramp stamp. But it goes deeper than
Yep.
that too, because it's kind of a play on the whole idea that you don't have to look or act or be a certain way to be a good mom. You can have a tramp stamp. You can have, piercings. You can, whatever. There's no, like,
There's no
there is
rules.
no picture of
Yep.
like what a good mom looks like.
Yep. So really, it's more about the ability to nurture the child and help yourself during this process. I wonder, what are some of the core elements that mums can find inside this wonderful book?
So I mean, the book basically is just, I tell my story, the good, the bad, and the
The
very
warts and all.
ugly,
Yep. Yep.
everything that I went through. And then also, I tried, I made it my story, but then I also tried to make it educational as well. So there's a lot of information on resources that are out there. There's a lot of information on, what to look for in signs and symptoms, the differences between like just having the baby blues and actually having postpartum depression and anxiety.
Hmm.
And then also, some of the statistics and things surrounding postpartum depression, because it actually affects up to 1 in 5 new moms, but less than 15% actually ever seek treatment. And that's a pretty scary statistic whenever you think about it, because mental illness is not something to just let go and see what happens with. And postpartum depression and anxiety is not any different in that aspect, and it can go away. It can go away on its own within a year or even months, but it can also last for years, and it can also lead to some pretty devastating consequences. There was actually a study published a few years ago, that found that suicide is actually the second leading cause of mortality postpartum. And that is, to me, that
That's
statistic
terrifying.
is just unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Whenever you think about new moms just being so overwhelmed that they end their life because of it.
It's humbling that and it's sobering also, to hear these sorts of things. But I've also taken from some of the reviews of your book that you take a down to earth. You make people laugh. You help them understand that it's okay to not be okay, but importantly,
Mm-hmm.
it's even better and it's even more okay to go and seek some help with that. Now, I've seen some of the resources that you've linked out to, Cassie, and I was sitting there, I was a little bit agape, looking at the some of the deeper levels. You got postpartum psychosis even. It can go very, very deep, and it can also affect the life partner as well. Tell us some of the things that women should be on the lookout for.
So anything, generally, so there's three different buckets, I guess, of
Mm-hmm.
mental health issues postpartum. The first is the baby blues, which is relatively common. Like we talked about, you're going through this whole life change, and you have all the hormones and the physical things that are going on. So it's like north of 80% of women actually experience the baby blues. But with the baby blues, it generally goes away within a few weeks, and it's more mild symptoms, just like feeling of sadness, maybe a little bit of like grief of your former life,
Mm-hmm. It's
things
yeah.
like that kind of accompany the baby blues. With postpartum depression and anxiety, that it lasts longer than that first few week period, and you start to get more severe symptoms. Like women will generally start to get insomnia. They'll have like bouts of uncontrollable crying, or even postpartum rage is something that's not talked about that much, but it's another like subcategory of postpartum depression. And so there's it that's the more severe. Like women a lot of times will have like intrusive thoughts, which are like thoughts that they might hurt their baby, or that something is going to happen to their baby, or that they might hurt themselves. But those are just thoughts at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah.
Whenever you get to the stage of postpartum psychosis, and which that is more rare, but it does happen. And that's a lot of times that's where women get to the point that it does get to where it can end in them harming themselves or their babies, because they're not just having thoughts anymore. They're actually like, they have those thoughts, but then they think that they should complete them, or they think that they should act on them. And a lot of times, like with women that experience postpartum psychosis, they won't sleep at all for periods of time. And that was actually That was my experience. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks, meaning I didn't sleep at all,
At
like
all?
period.
Wow.
Yeah. So my husband says it was the scariest thing he's ever seen because I would actually fall asleep and within seconds I would wake up in a complete panic because I just became obsessed with the fact that I just thought my daughter was going to die. I thought either I was going to do something to her or something was going to happen that was out of my control and she was going to die. And it was scary, but I just became, and I think a lot of moms have those thoughts, but I became obsessive about it. Like that was all that I could think about. And, that's the point where women need to seek emergency medical help right away. Whenever you get to that point. If we're talking about like postpartum depression or anxiety,
Hmm.
generally that can be handled by your OBGYN, or even a primary care provider or psychiatrist. If you start to experience symptoms of postpartum psychosis, you need to be admitted to an emergency room or a psychiatric hospital immediately.
These are very confronting, very complex topics to talk with, and anybody who's listening to the show today, there are going to be some links back to Cassie and her wonderful work. But also, I wonder, Cassie, when you wrote this book, did you find it difficult? Did it help you heal?
It was hard, but at the same time, I think it was very therapeutic,
Hmm.
and it helped me to, like, I guess, process a lot of my own journey and realize, because I think even initially, like, I had some guilt about what I experienced just because it wasn't what I expected motherhood to be. And I think, anyone that goes through this kind of has some of those feelings, or whether it's guilt or whether it's shame or whatever, it can be hard to get past. And, this was one thing that I think really helped me to get past that and realize, because I did a lot of research when writing my book, and it really opened my eyes to the fact that there are so many moms out there that were just like me. I mean, their story may not be exactly like
Yeah.
mine, but they went through a very similar experience. And I think, you know being able to find that community and those women is so important in the healing process too. Medication, therapy are great, but at the same time, if you have the opportunity to talk to someone who's been there and done that, it can be so much more powerful.
Absolutely. But you've gone one step further, Cassie. I know that you've done a lot of work, a lot of great development work. You've even got your own app here. I've seen some of the reviews on your app, and you know how useful it is for individuals to refer to. So tell us a little bit about the app and what it does.
So the app it's called Mom Stuff, and it is a place that houses a lot of resources, for postpartum depression specifically, but then also for all moms. It has resources for health and wellness, how to take care of yourself, how to take care of your mental health, how to kind of recover physically and emotionally from having a baby. And then also it has a social feature, built into the app where moms can go, either they can post as themselves or they can even post anonymously, because like we talked about it before, it is hard for some moms to really open up and admit some of these feelings that they have. So I wanted to make it an option for moms to be able to post anonymously and still be able to have other moms support them and give them advice or help them to get through some of those things. So that's a really important feature in the app too, because it kind of brings that sense of community to just being able to have some women who have maybe they're not going through the exact same thing, but they've gone through their own things.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, we all come out of this a little bit stronger, I think. And, anyone that is willing to help, other moms that are struggling, I think it's just so important to have that format and that community to be able to do that.
You've provided amazing resources inside this app, but you've also got a lot of great links into and out of your website. Can you tell us a little bit about what mums can find on your website and where they will find you?
Yeah. So my website is therealmomstuff.com, and it is basically a hub of information for postpartum depression and anxiety. There are links to, like I mentioned, postpartum support, postpartum alliance, all these different organizations that are really pioneering the movement for raising awareness and providing support for postpartum moms. And in addition to that, there's also, I blog, so I write a lot about like my own experiences. I have other moms come in and write about their experiences. So it's not just, my point of view all the time.
Yeah.
And then also I've actually started, offering some postpartum coaching to just kind of, help. Obviously, I'm not a medical professional. I can't
Mm-hmm.
replace a doctor or a therapist, but just for, moms to have someone to talk to that's been there and done that and come out on the other side of it.
That it points out again the importance of having somebody just to listen to you and share your experiences together. Now, I also notice on your website you have a mental health assessment. What is that part all about, and how do they go through that?
Yeah, so it's actually just it takes 5 minutes, but once you go through that assessment, it gives a lot of tips and resources and things like that, and there are a lot of simple, and I've recently gotten into like more holistic medicine
Yeah.
for treating anxiety and depression. And so it kind of goes more into the what can you do as far as like nutrition and exercise and things like that to really help your mental health and be at the peak of where you need to be.
And very importantly, Cassie, when people want to get their hands on your book, can they get it through the website, or is it another location?
It's available on my website. I actually have a full store on my website where I have a lot of different just like fun stuff for moms. I actually decided to design, t-shirts and different things like that because, why not? Why not?
Well, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so it's available through my store, but then it's also available through Barnes and Noble. It's available through Amazon, and basically any local bookstore, if it's requested, they can order it. It's available anywhere Ingram books are sold.
Thank you so very much, Cassie. You're a wonderful soul. You're doing some amazing work. Now, for everybody who's on the call today, if you're having some difficulty in this particular situation and you need some help, reach out to Cassie at therealmumstuff.com. I will be providing some links to Cassie and all of her resources, including her book. And in all of that, Cassie, this has been just such an eye-opener of a call. It's been a wonderful journey spending some time with you on the My Future Business show today.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.